and hopefully inspire more people to start composting too. So thank you very much, Sophie, for being here today and also for sharing your knowledge about the composting process with us. And yeah, go for it. I'm looking forward to everything you have to teach us.
Thank you, Kiki, for the introduction, and thank you, Katya, for the invitation. I'm very excited to be here to share what I've learned in composting with you guys. And I do mainly bokashi method, and I find composting in general for me is very interesting because it's a key to opening many other doors, hobbies like soil and pests and gardening, and also I'm a volunteer for social community composting, and I get to meet people who share the same interest. So life will never get bored with soil and composting. Um, One of the purposes of this workshop is because I find there are a lot of resources of composting regarding the methods, the tools, and the variations of each method. So it can be very confusing for many people and scare people away. But I hope this workshop will give detailed guidance and debunk some myths, probably with the scientific support. And yeah, let's enjoy it and start the workshop. First off, I'm going to share a little bit of my composting journey and briefly explain why we want to do composting. And followed up, I will introduce some popular methods and help you to set up your composting system. And lastly, we have some common questions and challenges we often encounter in our composting process. So this is the picture of my balcony. It's a tiny one. I started composting after having this small vegetable corner of mine. And the intention is to not to buy fertilizers. So I want to just put scraps in my soil and make it super rich. But later I will tell you this is wrong. It's not going to make it. But still, it's a very good thing to add to the soil. And I started with this lazy way, just chuck everything I have from kitchen and bury it in my containers with soil and just let it decompose naturally without caring for it. And it works, but it takes a long time. From time to time, I dig up to check, and the scraps are still there. So you need to be patient with it. Until one day, I discovered Bokashi method. This is the system I bought online. Two bins, and I practiced it, and I fell in love with it. I stuck to it, and together you need another big bucket to go along with this Bokashi method, which you can see here. And this is the Bokashi products I dumped in the soil before burying it. They still look like scraps, nothing special. A briefly justification why we want to do composting. According to EU resources, on average 131 kilo per person of food is wasted. That produces 252 million carbon dioxide released into the air. And if we consider a mature tree on average, it absorbs 22 kilos of carbon dioxide per year. That means we will need 10 billion trees to absorb this emission. Also, Zero Waste Europe said that 75% of food waste ends up in landfills or incinerated. So what happens in the landfill? The problem is most of the scraps in the landfill don't have access to oxygen. So the environment becomes anaerobic without oxygen. Therefore, anaerobic bacteria will take the lead and start decomposing the organic matter in a totally different, unwanted way, like this. Without oxygen in landfills, an apple will be decomposed by anaerobic bacteria like methanogens, and it will produce methane. And we all know methane is much worse than carbon dioxide. So we want to reduce the emission as much as possible. That's what we do from our individual contribution. Looking at the bigger picture, healthy soil is such an important player because it is one of the largest carbon sink on Earth, and it plays a crucial role in regulating climate, which is a very hot topic right now. On a more practical level, you get loads of benefits with a healthy soil profile. For example, it will increase the organic matter to soil, and microbes are happy because they are fed, and plants are happy and they feed each other. And this mutual happy relationship can only exist if the soil provides enough food for the microbes. Here are some basics of compost. Composting is the process in nature that recycles organic matter, and it needs 4 ingredients: carbon, nitrogen, water, and oxygen. And these ingredients are to feed the microbes in the soil. The golden carbon nitrogen ratio for composting is widely acknowledged to be at 30 to 1 by weight. But normally in practice, you never use a scale to calculate and to weigh everything. That's what experts do. And normally we do is to put parts, 2 parts of carbon, 2 parts of nitrogen, and just eyeball it, make an estimate. And it can't go too wrong because this decomposition will happen eventually. Here I put it in red color. I want to stress that compost is not fertilizer. So even when you see the scraps disappear under your eyes, they still exist in soil, just in smaller pieces your eyes don't see. It is slowly released for several years so that microbes always have food. If there's no food, they die. So NPK ratio, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, all the important nutrition of compost on average is 1:1:1. But on average, plants need 3:1:2. So in general, compost doesn't provide enough nitrogen. Bokashi might be a little bit exceptional because it has higher nitrogen level, which I will cover later. A separate issue here regarding soil is that don't overuse compost, especially when it's just done, because like I said, it will decompose within the next few years. So if it's just freshly done, it can even burn the plants. So you can use it as mulch, just put it on top and let it go down slowly. So like this being said, compost is sometimes controversial. People doubt that their plants are not happy in their compost. It's because people think that compost is fertilizer. And if they don't see plants are super happy, they think they don't put enough compost, and then they keep adding more compost. And they add compost every year. Then your nutrition builds up, nitrogen runs off, it's easy to run off, and other nutrition builds up that can have a negative impact on your plants. So the solution here is to use reasonable amount and use other soil amendment methods. for a better result. So now when we talk about carbon and nitrogen sources for microbes, it doesn't mean that one thing is carbon and this thing is nitrogen. When we say this material is carbon, it means this material has high carbon nitrogen ratio. For example, sawdust, it has 500 carbon and 1 nitrogen. It's a very carbon rich ingredient. We call it brown. On the other side, grass clipping from your yard, it has only 12. It's very low, which means the nitrogen level is high. Here I put coffee ground and cow manure. These are two typical great examples to show you not to be mistaken by the saying brown or green, because coffee ground and cow manure are brown colored, but they are green materials, in fact. All right, this is also a typical picture you can find. There are lots of what to compost and what not to compost. This is I could say this is a good list, but once you know all the methods, you will know some ingredients depend on your method. In traditional composting, you don't throw in meat or bones or dairy products, but in bokashi you can. So you choose your method and then you come back and you choose the right ingredients. However, in general, I put tea bags here that you don't compost because now the researchers find tea bags contain microplastics. So we don't want plastics in our compost. Same as glossy newspapers. You don't want those shiny stuff that's not decomposable into your bin. And also some plastic saying decomposable plastic. Well, they are industrial decomposable. They are not this decomposable in our household. So don't put that in. And also spicy food, particularly don't put to feed your worms. They're gonna get really irritated. Now we come to see how many methods we have. We have hot, we have cold, we have warm, vermi, we have bokashi, and you can mix them all and do a combination. A little bit of this new technology here. First of all, the traditional way, hot composting and cold composting, what are they? They are two different methods with two different final products. You can see from this picture. And I guess you can figure out and guess which one is for hot, which one is for cold. This black one is hot. Well, cold composting, we also call it passive because you care a little about it. You allow slow material build up, and then you just do layers after layers whenever you have your kitchen scraps or garden scraps available, and you build up your bin. You don't very little. You need to guarantee that this pile is not too wet if you don't turn it. So you still need to put a little bit of brown, like dry leaves, to balance out the ratio, carbon nitrogen ratio we just talked about. So that way, if you don't smell anything, then it's good. If it starts to smell, you need to check what's going on. Maybe you put too much salad leaves in there and it's too wet. And that is a problem because it will go into anaerobic decomposition process. These are the good advantages. The disadvantages are obvious as well. It takes longer. It doesn't kill certain weed seeds, pathogens, or pests. And if you don't pay attention to the smell, it can attract rodents. And in the end, the texture of the compost will not be as nice, as fine as hot compost. While hot, you call it thermophilic or active. It means you really need to be dedicated to it because you need to see the heat coming. The advantages are that hot composting is very fast. You will get your final product in about 1 month. And the temperature in the middle is so high that it kills the pathogens and weed seeds and pests. So it's a safe, relatively safe final product you will get. And it's fine. You don't have those half decomposed, they are still in the middle. The disadvantages is that you need to keep the temperature hot for consecutive 2 weeks. If it drops, you need to take care of it. And if it's too high, you need to take care of it because it can kill the good bacteria. And it needs a lot of space. If you don't have at least 1 cubic meter, it is not able to trap the heat in the middle. And in order to build this pile, in order to have this heat, you need to collect your ingredients all at once, have everything at your hand, and build a 1 cubic meter pile. So this method, if you have a big garden, if you are a big family with a lot of kitchen scraps, this is recommended. For this either hot or cold composting, you normally see these materials or tools or shapes. This is very common. It's mesh wire that you easily open and close. So you turn, you open it, and then you remake the pile. And this is the easiest. Just pile it up, let it heat up. Many families do the cold composting with the plastic box like this. You live at a corner of your garden. It's well organized, and it keeps the rodents outside, and it's aerated, so it's a good method as well for a small backyard. While this 3-bin build-up is also popular for a bigger yard, that you put your fresh materials inside, you collect it, and the next one you use it for composting process, and the third one you use it for finished product. And you put a lid so if it rains, it doesn't wash off the nutrients in your products. If you do hot composting, each one has to be at minimum 1 cubic meter large. Then you have this tumbler composter people invented for those gardeners or who don't want to do a lot of labor work. You dump everything in, you mix with the brown and the green, and then you just roll it like this, like twice a week, and then you get your product. But this is also not ideal for hot composting because it's only 340 liters big, and it's already a big one. The pros are that it's closed, so if you are so afraid of rodents going through your pile, you can use this one. Yeah, you just turn it, and it's neat, organized. Moisture is also better trapped if you don't want to. If you are in a very dry place, this might be a good option for you. There are disadvantages for this equipment as well. It's not big enough for killing pathogens with the hot method. In the end, some people claim that the harvesting is kind of difficult because it can get stuck and you have to collect it, or you need to use a big tarp to catch all the compost. It could be a mess, so for you to decide. But this is also friendly for a small yard. The tools. Well, the most important ones I already circled out. You definitely need a pitchfork if you want to do a big pile to turn it. And you need the thermometer to monitor the temperature. And some bucket here, bucket there to collect your dry and wet ingredients. To build a hot pile, you need to first layer some carbon dry materials on the bottom, and then you just layer wet and dry and wet and dry, and each layer you might want to spray a little bit of water to make it humid but not dripping wet. But if you add a lot of wet dripping scraps, maybe you don't need water. You need to juggle the ratio there. With experience, you will do just fine. Once your pile is built up, then you use the pitchfork to mix the pile very well, and then you let it sit, and the pile will heat up. All the bacteria will, the fungi and the bacteria will start working and decompose with all the food source in there. And it takes about 4 days to reach a temperature between 55 to 65 degrees. And if you add a little bit more green, the temperature can go higher at 70. And when you see the big smoke and the thermometer says 70, and you need to come turn it because it can't go higher. The bacteria will die. Yeah, for the 2 weeks, you need to turn every 2 days, depending on the temperature you get. Then slowly from the third week on average, the temperature will start to drop. Once it is similar to ambient temperature, you could say that this is the end of the composting. You let it age a little bit and stabilize the microbes. But this time, you don't need to turn it every 2 days, but still you need to give some air pockets to the pile. So you still turn it, but just once in a while. The common issue and the most challenging is troubleshooting in the hot composting. What if the temperature is too high? What if the temperature is too low? What are the reasons? Well, all the reasons can contribute to moisture and air and the ratio of your carbon and nitrogen. So normally, yeah, if it gets too hot and you need to rebalance the ratio, and maybe you need to reintroduce oxygen, or you need to check if it's too dry and the bacteria needs moisture as well. Yeah, and you practice, and each time I believe it will be better and easier to figure out. This is a hot topic, the composting. It is a big debate online. Some people say it's really good. Some people say it doesn't work at all and it's just extra pointless work. So I have done a research on this, and still, my final conclusion is that composting is a game of luck, because the bacteria group in soil is so complicated, so many kinds, and you make this tea in water, you brew it with or without bubbles, you make different bacteria. You don't know if they survive in soil. You don't know if these are good bacteria or bad bacteria in soil. So if you're lucky, you get good ones, you can say compost tea is really good. But if you get bad ones, then it doesn't work. It may even harm your plants. Yeah, so I would not recommend it. It costs extra energy. If you have a compost already, you can just mulch it, use it instead of compost tea. Bokashi is what I do here, and this is the screenshot of my products online. It costs 85 euros with everything. I'm gonna show you this big 19-liter guy here. With the it's a bin, but it has like a separate layer so that your liquid can drain through the bucket without flooding the system. And you have a tap here to drain the liquid once it starts producing. And the magic potion here is the Bokashi brand. The Bokashi brand is a specially made wheat bran carrying special microbes for you to do the bokashi fermentation. And it smells acidic, sour, a little bit, tiny bit with a sweet tone. It's very peculiar, but once you get used to it, the whole bucket, the compost tea, everything will smell like this, and you're fine with it. It's not a bad smell. And this bokashi method is also usually called EM method, effective microorganisms fermentation. It typically contains lactic acid bacteria that makes the batch acidic, and it has yeast and phototropic bacteria. And they also put some molasses in the bran so that once the bacteria get the moist, it starts activating and starts consuming this sugar to start fermenting. And also you can make your own bran if you think it's expensive, but to be honest, this 18 euros per kilo, it lasts a couple months, 3-4 months for me if you keep doing it. I find it okay, the price. The step by step is you layer the bottom with the bran, and you collect your kitchen scraps. I use this caddy because you don't want to open the bokashi bucket every day. The fermentation is an aerobic process, so you open the less, the better. If you use a caddy or even freeze your scraps, and then you add it every 2-3 days, is better. And every time you use a layer of like this, you add 1 to 2 tablespoons of the bokashi bran, and you need to mix to make sure that the bran is evenly coated on your kitchen scraps. And you just, when the bucket is done, is full, you close it. Oh yes, and you want to press the scraps to squeeze out the air pockets as much as possible. That's why this bucket I bought, it doesn't have a layer, a lid or a specially made plastic piece to make it press out the air. That's why I use a cut cardboard to cover the scraps. But there are some really nicely designed bokashi buckets. I regret it, but I have to stick with this. If you choose something that can really make you squeeze out the air. And you just let the bucket sit once it's filled for 2 to 3 weeks. My bokashi liquid started late. Maybe it was winter and the process was slow. But pay attention to it. You drain the leachate, the liquid, every 2-3 days once it starts. Then you ferment well. You bury the whole pickled scraps into your soil. You still have to do this because bokashi is a 2-step. Once it gets buried, it starts the aerobic process of decomposition, the real composting process. And during this time, the pickles, it's very acidic. so you cannot plant immediately on top of it. That's why we have this we call a soil factory, because you need to turn the soil and you need to wait for it to be processed to digest these pickles. Um, then you leave it there. You keep the soil relatively moist, and you let the nature do its work. A couple of more weeks, you just dig a hole and see if you still see the scraps. Once the scraps are completely or mostly disappear, you can start growing your plants. The benefit of bokashi, a very good benefit, is that it keeps nutrition better than other traditional composting method. In this picture, you can see conventional way, because it doesn't have high pH, it doesn't have low pH. So the nitrogen throughout the composting process, it will be released into air and get lost, uh, like in the form of ammonia and stuff, and same as carbon dioxide. But with bokashi, since it's preserved under low pH, it actually turns nitrogen into organic acids. And then you bury this in the soil, you diminishes the loss of nitrogen. So in general, bokashi method will give you a high nitrogen product. Another good thing about bokashi is that you can dump your meat, you can dump your eggs, you can dump your dairy products, oil, everything, almost everything. People sometimes compost their pet waste. Well, I'm not comfortable with that, but in theory, you can do it. Citrus here, a lot of citrus is not recommended in a normal compost bin, because it is not good for the microbes. It's too acidic. But here in bokashi, you can do it. And it can allow you to store your scraps for relatively long time if you keep the air out very well. It's pickles. This is one of the advantages. And yeah, higher in nitrogen. And you do it indoor like me. I can only do simple cold composting or bokashi at home because I live in a small apartment. I don't have a garden or yard. The disadvantages are that you have to remember to drain the leachate from the bin frequently. So if you are in the middle of bokashi and you're on your holiday for 2 weeks, then I think this batch will be destroyed. It will be completely soaked, and the smell is going to be so bad, and you don't want it. And also, you need to buy the bins and the brands. Although in the end, you can make your own brand. There are a lot of tutorials online to teach you how to do it. But still, you need to buy the bin, or you can make it if you are good at DIY. That's it. A screenshot of some final products of bokashi pickles. The white is all good. If you don't have any mold, normally I don't have white mold. I don't know why, but that's also okay. As long as you don't have dark molds, the green, the black, the blue, then you should stop there and just bury it, because it's not going through proper anaerobic fermentation. This is a good batch. And this is the bokashi leachate I collected. It's like this. You can dilute it to use it as direct, immediate fertilizer to your plants. And at the beginning, if it's fresh, it doesn't smell much, don't worry. But if you keep it for me, like me, store in fridge, the longer it keeps, the mm, the worse the smell will be. So I don't recommend it to store for too much, for too long. And instead, if you can't use too much, you just dump it in a sewage. It's because it's very acidic. It helps with the cleaning. Um, as to the nutrition of this bokashi leachate, some people say the tea is very nutritious and take good use of it. I have a website here for you to read if you're curious. The conclusion is that it's not that nutritious. But since it's a byproduct anyway, why not use it? The whole point is recycling. This is a good tip. I also found out too late. In Brussels, they encourage people and citizens to compost. So they have this bonus to reimburse up to 100 euros. You need to apply and you need to upload some documents they need, and then you will get your reimbursement. My purchase expired. So be sure if you are about to start, check your community if you have this bonus. Vermicompost is a very good method I'm not going to use because I'm afraid of worms. But if you're okay with it, you could consider this. The common species they use is red wigglers because they eat a lot of organic food and they reproduce fast. They don't dig too deep. Alternatively, other than red wigglers, some people do black soldier fly composting, and it's another worm that when they get into adulthood, they just reproduce and die. They're harmless. So in vermicomposting method, you add your fresh food to your worm bin, and the food will start to decompose by fungi and bacteria. And the worms will like partly decomposed food, and they will come and eat your food together with the bacteria and fungi they like. So technically, um, when we talk about composting, it's a chemical process of breaking down organic matter, while vermicomposting is more physical. You use worm to digest your organic waste. So, is this for you? There are pros and cons as well. The pros is that, like bokashi, vermicompost doesn't require big space. You can do it at home in your garage, and you don't turn it. You don't need to worry about how much carbon, how much nitrogen. And the cones, on the other hand, is like feeding a pet. You need to learn the diet, the balance, and you need to harvest the castings. You maybe need to worry about if other species invade, and if the worms are happy or not, if they crawl out or not, and if they reproduce too fast in 60 days, you might have double the amount of worms. So what do you do about it? These are the things you might want to think about. If you want to get worms, you get a cooler place. Garage, basement is better than a balcony. In a darker place, and you get a storage box, and you find beddings for the worms, like shredded papers, dry leaves, and wood chips. This will be the shelter of the worms, and the worms also love shredded newspapers and stuff. It's their emergency food. They will eat on that as well. And these things are also to keep the moisture balanced. So you add 10 to 15 centimeters of beddings and you dump your worms in the bin and let them adapt a little bit. And you can start feeding slowly, not too much. Otherwise, the fruit will rot and you are not gonna like the smell. Um, Anything organic you can feed. Um, even okay, this is another thing. Some people say don't give them citrus. They don't like it. Some people say I give them citrus. They love it. No problem. And you need to know your environment, know your worms, if they're picky or not, and then you need to do your experiment. Each bin is different. Each worm is different, maybe. And in general, they don't eat seeds. So don't feed them. You can take them out eventually, but they don't eat them. And don't give them spicy, irritating food or too salty food. Um, yeah, from time to time, you need to check the bin and add more dry bedding if it gets wet. And if they crawl out, you need to figure out why, if the temperature is good, if there's enough air. Um, it says normally you don't turn much the worm bin, but from time to time you still need to see if the worms are doing okay. You need to still flip it a little bit and check if they eat all the food. And each time you feed the food, and you need to cover the food with the beddings because worms don't like a lot of light as well. And it also keeps the odor out. Mm, what else? Yes, this is a pet keeping process that you need to learn. And normally, after 4, 5 months, if you have 500 worms more or less, your first batch of casting will be probably ready. You need to check uh, if it's okay. Then you harvest with many methods. For example, you do the light, you put the light on, the worms are not gonna like it, they're gonna go deeper, and then you can start collect. There are also many ways of collecting a casting. You use a sift, or you collect by hand, or you do this migration method. This is actually very popular. You make a mesh in the middle and you lure the worms with more food on the empty side. And when the worms are all going to this side, uh, the original side is kind of empty, and then you can start collect your casting without disturbing the worms. This fancy vermi tower is the same mechanism. Once you collect your castings, you build up the tower so the worms keep going up looking for food, and then you can collect the bottom tray. But this is still, it costs 99 euros, for example. So you can DIY a simple bin that costs much less, or this. It's up to you. The like bokashi, vermi composting will also have byproduct of leachate. This is just extra moisture, maybe with some nutrients in it, maybe some bad bacteria or pathogens that you don't want. We don't know that. So apply with caution. Also, the casts like compost is not fertilizer. And even some studies have seen the NPK ratio. The worm castings might even have higher phosphorus. So it's ideally speaking not perfect for plants. After all these methods said and explained, you can make the combination. For example, after the fermentation of bokashi, you can put in your hot pile to finish the decomposition, or a cold pile, you dig a hole, you dig a trench in your yard, and you bury your bokashi. Um, and natural way, after your hot composting, the, if you do it in nature, in your yard, some worms are gonna go in there naturally when the temperature cools down. They will further decompose your pile. Same as cold pile. So some people do even feed bokashi ferments to their worms. Some people say the worms like this pickled food. Some people say they don't like at all. So very controversial again, but try out. You never know. This is the chart I put to summarize the parameters with each method, and you can check it out here and find out the best method for you. For example, what space do you have? And what kind of yard do you have? And what type of waste do you produce mostly? And do you want it fast or you don't care? And do you want your soil to be pathogen free or you don't mind? So check it out. Oh, this is the bonus point that I'm also excited to share. Because, like I said, extra citrus pills is not good for traditional composting. If you are a lemonade lover, you might have a problem. But if you make bioenzyme like this in the picture, what I made, you find some plastic bottle and you follow this recipe of 10 parts water, 1 part molasses or brown sugar, and 3 parts finely chopped citrus peels. And you shake and put it in a shade, let it ferment. And remember to release the gas because it's gonna be like soda water at the beginning. But I like this product. I use it to clean my kitchen countertop. It has a fragrant smell. It's efficient. I have made like 10 bottles already. And the rest of the solid, you can still bury it into your soil. Then this way you get rid of your lemon pills, orange pills, in a good way. This baby electric composters, I saw a lot of people asking if it's good or bad. I don't have one, but I saw a lot of reviews. In general, it is an expensive gadget. It costs 470, and you need to buy it, replace the filters there. That costs like what, $27 per filter. So it is not a composter, to be sure. It chops and dries out your scraps. It comes out like this. It looks like compost, but once it gets wet, if you mulch it on top of your plants, thinking it's good to use, and then you water, it's gonna smell big time because it is not decomposed yet at all. People say they use it. Some people say because you can do this in winter, and it doesn't smell once it's produced. I don't get it actually. It's another electronic device, and you need energy to process this while you can do it in a natural way. So if you are interested, you find it potentially useful, you can have a look. But for me, if I have a garden like this, I have a bucket, I'm all happy without. All right, now final comes to the common questions. I think after the explanation of all methods, some of the questions might already be clear for you. For example, can I compost cooked food with salt? My answer is a small amount, small dose is okay in general. Um, because if you put it, for example, you put it in vermi bin, the worms don't like it, they just run away, they don't eat it. And in bokashi, some of it will be leached out, and some of the salt will still contain salt, but if it's in small dose, it's not a big problem. Um, can I compost infected leaves? It depends. If you collect your dry leaves from your garden, and your garden is definitely exposed with a certain group of fungi and bacteria, so you cannot avoid it. But if it's a virus infection or a bad infection you are already trying to control, then definitely do not compost it. Um, and pet waste, if you're confident, you can compost it. But I would not use the product to for my vegetable gardens. Then, can I compost moldy food? For a hot pile, it's not a problem because the temperature kind of kills everything. In a cold, it's not a problem. If you bury it well, it will keep decomposing. In a vermicompost bin, it depends. If it's slightly moldy, actually the worms love it. And in bokashi, white mold is definitely good, but dark molded food, you a little bit is also okay, but you don't want it to um, compete the good bacteria. So if it's larger quantity, better throw it. And if my compost smells, then you need to check the four basic ingredients. You need to check the ratio, the dry and the wet. It can be too wet, and if there's no air, it can create bad smell as well. Yeah, so this is more or less the common questions, and I welcome more questions if there are any. And happy composting. In the end, I have some links for you if you're curious to learn more about composting. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sophie. That was very insightful. I love that you also shared your own journey with us and had the little bin there. That's very nice to make it a bit more tangible. I wanted to ask if anyone in the audience has any questions for you, or perhaps their own composting story to share. This is your moment. We have an expert. So
if they don't, I have.
okay.
Okay, I have
Let's go for it. Yeah.
I have several questions because yeah, I think I start to compost like 1 month ago, and everything is going well. But it's called well, in the end, I decide I am going to do cold compost. So, well, I have a question. So, in cold compost, compost can kill pathogens or pests as well?
No, we cannot.
And if not, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I collected horse manure from a equitation center, and I learned that, for example, E. coli, we don't want it. Salmonella, we don't want it. But you know, in 6 months, in 1 year, you lay it there, they're gonna die eventually.
Oh, okay.
I say it doesn't kill pathogen in a sense that there's no heat. So it doesn't instantly kill the pathogen like hot composting. Hot composting final product is relatively is the safest. to use when we
Okay.
talk about pathogens. But in hot composting, in cold composting, if you just leave it there, there's the heat is not enough to kill them. But eventually, if you wait for 1 year, even you forget about it, it stays there for 2 years. Some bad ones are definitely gonna die. But if you want to use it after 3 months, 6 months, you don't care if it's fully decomposed, you're gonna use it, then maybe there are still some bad ones still there.
Okay. And one question, is not this dangerous for the soil?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I guess if I start to, for example, to small agriculture, small
Mm-hmm.
crops in my garden,
Mm-hmm.
so I guess it may be a little bit dangerous.
Dangerous meaning overuse it?
Yeah, because I'm using it, for example, for agriculture, the small ones.
Hmm. It's recommended to use about 1 inch per year, no more,
No more.
because the composting the it takes 3, 4, 5 years. So first year you add an inch on top, and this inch is going to decompose in the next consecutive 5 years. And the second year, you think, oh, it's time to add some nutrition to it. You add more compost on it, and then this is the amount of your newly added compost with the compost nutrition from the previous year. And nitrogen is always a deficiency in general because it goes leached out with water and it goes evaporate. And on the other hand, phosphorus is going to build up on the top of the soil.
Okay.
If you keep using it, layer it out, each year it builds up. It may cause the soil very imbalanced.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Sophie. And I have another one. It's just a little bit curious. The worms that we can find in our garden here in Belgium can work as to make vermicompost, because I think it's California worms, the species that we have to use for the vermicompost, but I am not sure if it's the same species.
That one I really don't know, because everyone talks about red wiggler, and is the ideal worm to use. I don't know if our attendees here have any experience on worms, or if they have better suggestions. Yeah, but people just buy online.
Okay, so maybe it's better to buy online.
You can start and tell us in a couple of months how
Yeah,
that's going.
Yeah. Well, maybe I may try with the one that we can find here, and maybe I can try as well to with something that I can get online.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect. We have our own composting science experiment here at Embrace the Earth. I wanted to ask if anyone in the audience maybe has a question in the meantime. I have one question otherwise, but
I
now is
have
the
I
time
have
to
one as well.
please go.
Yeah, it's not a question. I just needed a clarification. Anyways, thank you, Sophie, for the insightful presentation and really nice slides, by the way. So is that I just needed clarification about the tea compost, about the NPK ratio. Like it was 0.200, I guess. Was that the ratio of the NPK in the compost you made?
Thank you for the question, Ridwan. The compost tea ratio actually varies. It depends on what you feed to your compost. So each compost is different. But in general, the compost tea, once you extract and brew, the NPK ratio is low. It's lower than compost. And the ratios can be different. I just had an example there, 0.2 and 1. It has little nitrogen, but not pretty much, that's it. So yeah, the compost tea is really, really a controversial thing. And after all the reviewing and research I did, um, I think compost tea is not really necessary if you have already done your compost. You have your solid thing, you leave it there instead of changing the environment of the microbes, put it in the water, and then take it out from the water to put it back in the soil. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, very well it did. Because I was also just curious when I saw like 0.20, it was like very low, I mean very poor quality.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of videos. I was curious. I wanted to make compost tea as well. Because my compost is not working very well here, obviously, because of the reason I explained. I want to make extra boost for my garden plants, and I wanted to try those grass clipping compost tea. And you brew with water and let it sit there, and it looks horrible, and it lacks oxygen, so the you don't know what bacteria is going to be there, if they're good for your soil at all. So
Okay. Anyone else? No, then I might ask a final question to end on, if that's okay. What would be your number one tip for like complete beginners? Because it's a lot of different methods, and like you have a very useful comparison, by the way, of like, okay, I live in a small apartment, so maybe like the big garden ones aren't ideal, but like, like what is the number one tip you would give people who are complete beginners and are maybe a little bit overwhelmed with all the different options?
I went through this process. I started with zero knowledge. So I think you could try the simplest way. What I did is to collect your scraps and you just bury it in your soil. If you have an apartment like me and you have containers and pots, you fill the pots and then you just dig a hole and you dump your scraps in there and see how it goes. If you're not in a rush, and then little by little, bokashi is actually very easy. The if you buy online, everything is ready with a manual with a clear explanation. You follow step by step. There.
Okay, that sounds doable. Thank you.
And I want to add that don't be stressed about composting. This is nature. This is nature's work. It happens all the way, and it happens all the time. And it can go a little wrong. It can go a little imbalanced, but in the end, it will get there. So I think this is a fun process that everyone should try if they grow something.
I think that's a very lovely note to end on today. Thank you so much, Sophie. And thank you everyone for attending this workshop as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kiki. Thank you for your interest in this topic and this long workshop.
Very insightful, Sophie. Thank you so much, and thank you so much to everyone for joining today. And see you maybe next time.
See you next time.
Okay, thank you guys. Have a nice evening. Thank you.
And a good weekend.
Thank you. Bye.